What's up, everybody? I'm Katie, and this is For Your Misinformation, a podcast dedicated to making politics more accessible for everyday Americans. My goal is to empower people, especially women, to become more politically engaged so we can act in our own best interests. Let me identify the problem and tell you exactly how we can solve it. On Mondays, I break down topics like voter suppression, impeachment, and white supremacy, look to the experts in that field, and then talk about the ways we can help the most. That might be donating to a charitable organization, voting in a local election, going to a rally, following activists on social media, running for office, or whatever else we can think of. On Wednesdays, I highlight individual politicians, whether I support them, and who you might want to vote for instead. Hi, everybody. I'm Katie.
And I'm Morgan.
And Morgan is back with us today because we have a question that we need to ask you. What happened in Iowa, and was it your fault?
What happened is a great question that we might never have one direct answer to, but I do not think it is my fault.
Okay.
I like to think that me moving back to Iowa actually made things a little bit better.
Sure.
But I'm biased.
We had an extra caucus participant because of you, but okay, between you and your grandpa, who was a precinct captain, like, what do you think? What's your guys' take?
So they have this app. Everybody's heard about the app. And first things first, it was not hacked. We can all calm down. In fact, this whole conspiracy that there was a hack really kind of gives a lot of, like, power to Donald Trump.
I know, it's so sad.
Yeah, so that's not what happened. Basically, they told the precinct captains that they should use this app to report the number of votes because it would be faster and the app could actually do all the complicated caucus math for them. But the first problem with the app was that, well, there were several, but a lot of the precinct captains are old volunteers. They have been doing this for a very long time. Like my grandpa, they are like 80 or older.
Just doing his best.
So, yeah, they're like not excited about using an app. They don't want to have that kind of change. But then, for example, my grandpa was like, you know what, fine, I'll do this app thing. But he called my dad and asked my dad if he could help him with this newfangled technology, get a young kid like my 52-year-old father.
Right.
And my dad could not access the app. So that was the second big problem, is that some people couldn't download the app at all. And so obviously they can't report their results that way. And they were told to just go ahead and call in the results or call in the votes. But because they being the Iowa Democratic Party, expecting people to use this app, they didn't have enough people there to answer the phones. And so the phone lines took forever and people were on hold for a long time. Old men like my grandpa were just finally like, you know what, to hell with this. I'm going to bed.
I get it.
Call him in the morning, which power to him. He's too old for that shit. Yeah, so that's a problem. And then the people who were able to report to the app, there was actually a coding error, which meant that at first, everything that went into the app wasn't actually gonna be correct results once they were reported. And so this app that was supposed to make the math easy, make the reporting easy, and make the public get the results faster has just completely ruined everything.
Backfired.
Yeah, total backfire. There needed to be testing and there needed to be training, and neither of those things happened.
Right.
And so now you have situations like the most embarrassing thing to happen in Iowa since Champagne Gate on this season of The Bachelor.
Oh my God, Kelsey is so terrible. I can't believe she's still on this season. Peter is so bad at picking, he doesn't know what he's doing. Okay, so I guess we will try and put the Iowa caucuses behind us. I bet you guys are totally going to lose your first in the nation status. There's no, I don't know. There's, who knows what's going to happen. But okay, so onwards to New Hampshire. It looks like, based on the results that have come in, which is 97% at this time, that Bernie and Pete are neck and neck in terms of delegates, and that it looks like Bernie has most of the popular vote. Do you have anything that you want to say about that?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. It's almost a little bit ironic because Bernie, who has said before, hey, this whole popular vote, delegate vote, electoral thing is one of the biggest problems of our system when
Agreed.
it comes to elections, is being the victim of it right now. So yes. It's a little bit ironic, and it's also like a total wake-up call to why we need to change things.
Yes, and it reminds me of the Electoral College, which is just, I mean, it's the same idea, it's the same process, but just, I don't understand why in our country, one vote doesn't count as one vote, you know? Like, I just don't understand why we can't do why should Hillary Clinton win the popular vote by 3 million votes and Donald Trump still be the president? Like, why do we do it that way?
It's so interesting because the Electoral College gives so much bias to what we call the battleground states.
Right.
Iowa being one of those battleground states. So I'm kind of like, yeah, Iowa gets more power this way, but also, no, this is not a good thing. So there's so many problems with the Electoral College, but one of the big ones being the bias that it gives to these battleground or these swing states.
For sure.
Kind of like ours. And that's why Hillary wasn't successful, because so she won New York and California, which have a lot of electoral votes. However, the swing states are what really is going to make that difference.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how that happened. And it's probably going to continue happening until we change something.
Right.
Or it's going to completely reverse and it'll actually be the opposite system. So this is something I actually think is really interesting to think about. If you think of states like Iowa, like my state, which is traditionally a swing state, but is going more and more red, much like a lot of these other swing states, eventually they won't be the battleground states anymore.
Yeah.
They'll just be red states. But that's going to mean that there's certain other areas or like regions, not even so much states, but just regions in the U.S., especially in states that are growing a lot, like Texas, that are becoming increasingly more blue. So that's actually going to flip, and they won't be there won't really be swing states, but there's just going to be a lot of like blue and red states.
Yeah.
And eventually that'll actually put a lot of favor in with the Democratic Party. And then we'll have the opposite situation where Republicans are the ones complaining about the Electoral College instead of Bernie Sanders.
Right. So basically, we're kind of working within a system that is rigged to that only swing states matter. And honestly, populations that have a lot more white voters tend to matter more. Surprise, surprise. It just always happens to work out that way. So it's a shitty system, but it's a system that we do have. So we have to kind of work within it as long as we have to work within it. But I just think it's important to remember, like, I don't know, you're always reminding me of this, but like, you don't have to accept things for the way that they are. You should question them and figure out why they are the way they are and think about whether there's a more fair way of doing that. I think people are doing that a lot more right now, understanding that like maybe having the Iowa caucuses go first is not the most fair and democratic way of doing this. Maybe using the Electoral College is not the most fair and democratic way of doing things. But for now, that's a system that we're working within. So like you mentioned, I don't know. I keep thinking about the impeachment vote. I talked about this before, but I keep alternating between like rage and despair. But like I said, despair is not like a useful emotion, but rage can be useful. So if we had just a couple more, so you know how we flipped the House blue in the 2018 midterms? So that's the only reason that we had any kind of power over Donald Trump. It's the only reason that he got impeached in the House is because it was under Democratic control. If the Senate had been under Democratic control, he would be impeached and removed right now. But since the Senate has a majority of Republicans in it, led by Mitch McConnell, who is the worst, we got problems on problems on problems. So we don't have to dwell on that anymore. We can talk about what we can do about it. So one of those states, one of the 4 seats that we have to flip blue in the Senate is in Maine. So currently Susan Collins is the senator who is up next year in Maine. She is awful. We don't have to talk about her too much, but I think the big things that people know about like her and her terribleness is when she voted to confirm Kavanaugh after that whole debacle. That was infuriating. It was really hard, I know, for probably most women, as most women experience sexual harassment and sexual assault. I know it was really hard for me to watch him get confirmed after Christine Blasey Ford like credibly accused him of sexual assault, and he like broke down in front of the Supreme Court, and it was just, that was really hard to watch. Susan Collins voted for him, voted to confirm him, so that was like the first I think I'd ever really thought about Susan Collins, and that was not a great first impression. She just has this like whiny fake concern about her where she's always like wringing her hands and like, oh, I don't know, I'm just really concerned. And then she votes with Trump like all the time. So between that, and then she also, I did a little bit of digging while you were at the gym. She's taken over $1 million in donations from Big Pharma and from insurance companies. And she's like really in bed with insurance companies, and she's very anti healthcare for all and stuff like that. So she's not the voice that I think, at least the people that I know, I don't know anybody from Maine, but like the progressive women that I know and respect, you know, she doesn't really represent them. Not to mention that she voted for those Trump tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. So I don't know. Do you want to talk shit about Susan Collins? Anything I missed?
Okay, what's the craziest thing is, so I only actually know one person from Maine, and they, because I was like, so how much does Susan Collins suck? And they're like, so interesting perspective. As much as she sucks, she is one of the most bipartisan members.
I know.
Members of the Senate. Like, that's insane. As much as she sucks, like on paper, she sucks less than some of them, and like, what? That's terrifying.
I know.
So I think that's like almost the most shocking thing.
She's terrible, and she's still one of the better ones. But I don't know. So she did vote to call witnesses in the Senate impeachment trial. So like, you're right. She seems to have like some kind of a conscience, but it just seems like it never happens when it matters. Like, yes. She knew that they were never going to call witnesses because Mitch McConnell was never going to let 4 senators ask to call for witnesses. I mean, I'm guilty of getting my hopes up for that. And like, I'm glad that she voted in favor, but like, I wanted to talk about her this week because I didn't want her to be like spared. Like she, like, I don't know, she's pretending like she has a conscience voting for witnesses, but then immediately voted to acquit the president. Yep. Agrees that he did not learn his lesson, that he's not, you know, he still says he didn't do anything wrong. Like, he was extorting a foreign power for personal gain and political gain, and she's like, like, he hasn't admitted that he did anything wrong. I don't know why you would vote to acquit him. So we got to get rid of her. She's got to go. And the good news is that she has a pretty dope person running against her named Sara Gideon. And one of the ways that I know that she is dope is because she doesn't take any corporate PAC money. So all that funding that Susan Collins gets from Big Pharma and all that stuff, nope. Sara Gideon is funded through grassroots donors, kind of like Bernie and Elizabeth are, which is why we like them so much. And she's also endorsed by Emily's List, which is an organization that I really like and respect, and we'll talk about a little bit more. But they are dedicated to electing pro-choice women into government, and they have endorsed Sara Gideon in the race against Susan Collins. So Maine is one of the ways that we need to, hopefully one of the ways that we can flip one of the 4 seats in the Senate to take that gavel out of Mitch McConnell's hand. But I did a little bit of extra digging about why Maine should vote for Sara Gideon and instead of Susan Collins, and what we can do to help. So there's a lot of opioid deaths in Maine. I don't know. We talk. Morgan and I obviously have a public health perspective, but there's opioid deaths are a big public health concern, and climate change is obviously a huge public health concern. So Maine is on the coast. They have a lot of like stormwater management infrastructure to update, and they also have a lot of like coastal roads that are going to need updating. And between that and opioid deaths, like, we know as public health professionals that the electing progressive Democrats is like the way to help solve those issues. Like, Republicans are not doing anything about climate change. If we want to make any inroads in climate change, we have to get Mitch McConnell out of the office, and we have to get we have to get Susan Collins out of office with him. But Sara Gideon like actually has plans. She understands climate change. So she is for expanding Medicare. So what are we going to do to help get Sara Gideon elected? I have some ideas. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I can go first. So I guess one of my things is, if you don't live in that state, you can still like that person on Facebook if they have a Facebook page for their campaign. Free. Or Twitter, or, retweet their stuff. Show that kind of support.
Yes.
Donate, obviously, but kind of, I always like taking that extrovert approach too.
Right.
Just continue supporting progressive women. So like, be the Emily's List of your community. Mm-hmm. Support progressive women. If you do know people in Maine, tell them to volunteer. Right. Like, you can knock on doors, you can make phone calls if you don't want that face-to-face interaction, or you're like not able to knock on doors. Mm-hmm. That's fine too. You can host parties in your house. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe that's the Iowa in me coming out, but you can like host parties in your house, which, how cool is throwing a party for a progressive candidate?
Yeah, and awesome. I bet you meet a lot of people who are very like-minded. That would be very fun too. I should make that a goal of mine.
Yeah, and that's so much less scary than knocking on a door where you don't know who's going to answer, or if they're going to shut the door in your face, which might hurt your feelings. The people that are going to go out of their way to come to a party are going to be real cool.
Right. Yeah. So part of the reason that I wanted Morgan to join me is because we are really good friends, but we are also very different people in that I am very introverted and Morgan is very extroverted, but we have similar goals in our understanding of the political environment and what needs to be done. So when she talks about going, like, hosting parties and going to knock on doors, like, that's awesome. But the introvert in me is like, oh, no. I would rather. So I think what I'm going to commit myself to doing this week, I'm going to donate $10 to Sara Gideon's campaign, specifically to help her out in Maine. I'm going to donate $10 to Emily's List to elect more pro-choice candidates. I will post on the FYMI Pod Instagram page all the contact information that you need to know for these people, for Sara Gideon especially, but I'll also talk about Emily's List so that you can follow those organizations and donate money if you want to. The resource that I found last week that I really like is called Vote Forward. So they have different campaigns for different like super states that might flip. For some reason, Maine doesn't have its own campaign, so I wrote 5 letters to Georgia voters. I think I'm gonna make it my goal to write 20 more letters to Georgia voters, because the goal is to get Mitch McConnell the fuck out of the Senate, and in order to flip the Senate and take the majority leadership away from him, then we have to take like whatever states we want to. So while this week we are focusing on Maine, and I'm happy to like donate money to Sara Gideon's campaign, I couldn't find like a way to volunteer outside of Maine, like writing letters. So I'm going to just write some more letters in my downtime, probably while I'm watching The Bachelor, with my mom. So I'm going to, it's really cool. It's really easy to do. You write their name, you write the reason that you vote in every election, and then they give you the address of a voter who lives in Georgia, who is unlikely to move and unlikely to vote. And it shows that way increased voter turnout among people who get a letter in the week before the election. So I just made a little Tupperware box that's marked mail on October 27th, and I'm just going to add letters to it and add letters and add letters, and whenever I feel really pissed at Mitch McConnell, I'm going to write 5 more letters, and that's going to help keep me from going crazy. So I will post all of that stuff on the FYMI Pod Instagram page. It's really, really accessible. I also want to just say I got a lot of this information from Swing Left, which is a really cool organization. They are the ones that gave me all the information about the places that Susan Collins gets money from and how shitty those places are. And then also Vote Save America had a lot of really interesting information. And then, like I mentioned, Vote Forward is the place that I go to do those letter writing campaigns, because the introvert in me has gone door knocking before and did not love it. So I don't think that's for me, but there are plenty of other ways for me to help, and maybe that's something that's more up your alley.
Yeah, there are definitely ways for everyone to help.
All right, so those are our goals. Those are how we're going to stay sane this week. Those are the actions we're going to take. Anything else that you want to mention?
Yeah, just look on Emily's list. You can Google it, easy to find, and search the progressive female candidates that you want to support. So you can search by state, you can check them out, and pick one that you want to root for, whether that is financially or physically, or you just want to retweet their stuff. Like, pick somebody to fall in love with. It's almost Valentine's Day.
Right. And honestly, progressive women, pro-choice leaders are probably better Valentines than, like, most men out there.
Yeah, it's exactly what we need.
Yes. Okay. Last thing. So I think we spend a lot of time worrying about and thinking about the state of politics in America, and I at least know that I can get a little bit overwhelmed with that and not do such a great job of taking care of myself because I'm so anxious about everything else. So let's do like a self-care corner, okay?
Oh, I love it.
Okay, so my goal, and my therapist agreed. I also, you know what? I'm going to start talking more. I'm going to start telling more on this podcast about what my therapist says about Trump, because he hates him, and it is so funny. So I'll think of like a really good story for next time. He refers to him constantly as a malignant narcissist, and it's like, I mean, if anybody's going to know, it's going to be my licensed clinical therapist. But our goal, we spent most of our time today talking about politics, but we did end with my goal of going swimming this week and getting some exercise, because I've been like letting that fall off the plate. So my goal for this week, the next time we have our phone call, our check-in, I am going to have gone swimming one time.
I love it.
Okay, good.
I like my hair, but I hate that I can do literally zero things with it besides wear it in a ponytail.
If it makes you feel better, I never would have, like, diagnosed that. I would never have, like, noticed or guessed that. But I guess you're right. I have never seen your hair curled.
Yeah. So I want to learn how to curl my hair. Like, I want those big, loose, beautiful, professional lady curls. So I am not rocking, like, the 1995 high ponytail slightly off to the side.
But it looks so good on you.
I rock the 90s thing. I got that 90s bitch down. But yeah, I got to get a headshot done, and I really feel like my high pony and a scrunchie doesn't match my like nice
business
red blazer
aesthetic
I'm wearing.
Right. Okay, well, you look on YouTube, you get some tutorials, and if you really need help, I think I can help you out. I'm pretty good with hair. It's one of my things, so.
Okay, I will probably be calling you. If anything, just because I'm going to need like even help picking a YouTube person to watch. Okay,
I'll work on it.
I don't even know where to start.
I'll be the emotional support. You may also have to be the emotional support to get me to the pool, but.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, good goal. Okay, then we will talk to you guys next week, and in the meantime, snaps for Sara Gideon, and fuck Mitch McConnell.
But not literally.
Exactly. All right, bye.
Bye!
Shout out to Hope Dye for the podcast art, Kyle Dibdahl for the intro and outro music, and Ben Schlofelt for the audio production. I'd like to thank Lauren Duca, Sarah Kensier, Andrea Chalupa, Brene Brown, Lizzo, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Karen Kilgariff, Georgia Hardstark, Marie Newman, and my mom for their inspiration, and I'd like to thank you for listening.